welcome back to yet another Winged Unplugged and a beautiful, beautiful summer Friday here in New York City. So today's topic is one that is really close to my heart, something that I've had to work through and I'm still working through in my adulting journey. And in the many years that I've taught meditation, I see that it comes up not just for me, but a lot of us. You know, as I have taught meditation, one of the things that we go deep into is acceptance. And I've had so many people tell me, Ruchika, it's easy for me to accept other people, relatively. It's really difficult to accept who I am. I have a really tough time accepting all my imperfections and heard things like, I'm really hard on myself. Or even you might have said it or you've heard other people say this, I am my worst critic. So if any of these resonate with you, then today's topic is definitely one that we need to explore together. So often we're so hard on ourselves. We are our worst critic. It's like we're living with a critic in our head. And every moment of our life, this critic is watching and saying all the things that we could have done differently, we should have done differently, we should have said differently. And it's not just about action and words. It starts with, Ruchika, you should have felt differently. We start judging our feelings, whether there's purity in the feelings or not. We start judging our thoughts. Oh my God, are they right or wrong? Or are they good or bad? And from thoughts, we come into speech and action. And the hardness does not just stop there. Even if somebody close to us does something that is not right, we feel responsible and beat ourselves down. Have you not seen mothers do that a lot? Like when the kid does something wrong, their first question to themselves will be, what did I do wrong? How did I not bring them up properly? And similarly, we feel it too, right? If something in the team, something goes wrong in the team, you're like, what did I not do right? Should I have not given them as much space? Should I have been more involved? Or something in the house doesn't go right, you're like, oh my God, I should have never left my plants with somebody else. Just notice this critic does not let us just be. It's constantly beating us down. So just keep that at the back of your mind and we will unpack it a little bit more. The second thing that we do when we're very hard on ourselves is the spotlight effect. And we spotlight all the things that are not right. So we make them much bigger than they are. So for example, if you're on a play and a play is a 60-minute play, this person will focus on the 1 minute where they could have had a better expression, a better, might have said their lines better, whatever. They will magnify that 1 minute and make it feel like they messed up the entire play. I can give you an example. Whenever I lead a class, especially if it is to a lot of different people or people where I think, I need to be on my A game, I will over-index on the one or two things that I should have said differently in my mind, and not recognize the 58 things or 58 minutes that were absolutely spectacular, that were absolutely brilliant. I will over-index on the two things that I should have said that, or how did I not think of it, oh my God, that was such a dumb mistake. We over-index and make the negative so big, and that becomes another reason for us to just beat ourselves down and stay in the negativity. And what happens when we do that? When we have this critic in our head, we're constantly focused on all the things we're not doing right. And I'm not saying don't be aware, don't learn from it, but don't over-index on it. Guess what happens then? We move through life with fear and inhibition. Just imagine if you were living with, let's say your best friend, your spouse, somebody in your family was constantly critical of what you were doing. Would you move freely? Would you move with a sense of ease? Would you move with naturalness? Or would you move tiptoeing around, wondering when you're going to be called out on something you've not done properly? And the worst thing is, in this case, that person who we're tiptoeing around is ourselves. We are scared of our own judgment because we're constantly judging ourselves on all the things that we're not doing right. It's not a balanced or holistic point of view. So guess what happens in life? Are you expanded? Are you walking with your shoulders at ease, feeling so, bigger and large than life? Or are you shrunk in? Are you playing not to lose rather than to win. So just notice what that internal critic and being hard on yourself is doing. You know, Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar said this beautifully. He said, surrender means giving up on all your judgments about yourself. I've never heard of surrender in that way. We have so many judgments about ourselves. Can we just let them be? Can we just let them go? And that is powerful. You know, we don't recognize the magnanimity of who we are. We say it, you know, I want to live my highest self, I want to live my best self, I want to live my biggest self. Is that possible when we're constantly beating ourselves down? Forget big, we have even shrunk compared to what we were, right? The biggest self can only happen when we can nourish ourselves. The other thing that's very fascinating for me to watch is how kind we are to other people. You know, when other people make mistakes or other people are not feeling so good, we're so compassionate, we're so kind, we're so loving and nurturing most of the times. But we don't show any of that to ourselves. This is very hypocritical at a level. Why do we have a different standard for other people and ourselves? Why do we think that other people deserve more love and are worthy of much more of our softness, and we get the hard side in ourselves? Just notice, are you your biggest critic or are you your biggest cheerleader? Because life moves on enthusiasm. Life moves from cheerleading. Life moves from nourishing. It does not move from fear, beating ourselves down, all of that. You know, I'll share another story, like, because this has been one of my challenges, because I over-index and I beat myself down. At a very subtle level, we think we can control, but we can't really. And many, many years back, I was in the process of organizing an event. I think it was nearly a decade back. And of course, you know, when you're organizing an event, it's a non-profit, different people have different points of view. And I was one of the people leading the event. And it was not, you know, the easiest time. I was getting a lot of feedback and not so positive. I was getting all the things that I'm doing wrong. And that in addition to what I'm saying to myself, right? And I had a full-time job. I was working in American Express at the time. So literally I would get up at 4 or 5 in the morning, do my meditation, because I do meditation in the morning. And I would go to work, do a full day of work in between, steal whatever time I could to actually help with this event, because it was just a month away. And it was a huge event. And I would then literally from work go back, not even come back home. I would like do whatever we needed to kind of get the event off the ground, so many different things, and come back home really late. If there was dinner at home, if he'd ordered something in, if somebody had cooked something, I would eat. Otherwise, like, go back to work, the event work, and sleep at maybe 1, 2 in the morning. So I was literally on 2 hours of sleep for a very, very long time. And I thought, oh my God, this is my new normal. And in all of these things, lots of things were going wrong. People are telling me all the things I can do differently. I am telling myself on top of that all the things that I should do differently and more. So you can imagine how hard I was on myself, because I was hearing all the feedback and more. And in all of this, one day I came back home at, I think it was 10:30, and I hadn't eaten. It was one of those days when I was fasting. And I just got home, and the doorman calls up and says, Ruchika, so-and-so is here to see you. And she was one of the core team members. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do wrong? Did I have to get back to her on something? You know, I'm literally in the 2 minutes that she has the elevator ride from the doorman to our apartment, I'm thinking of all the things that I have done that I messed up. And I'm like, in some ways feeling bad, in some ways building up my defense. And she comes in, and she has a little bag in her hand. And I said, hi, how are you? You know, it's good to see you. And she's like, you know, I'm not here to talk about work. I'm not here to talk about the event. I just came to see if you'd had dinner, because I know you've been at it 24/7 and you're working really, really hard. And I just wanted to ensure that you've eaten. And that, to me, even when I think about that, I can have tears in my eyes, because to me that was such kindness and compassion, right? And why kindness and compassion hit me is because I wasn't being kind to myself. I was not being compassionate to myself. And so many times in my life, when people are kind to me when I least expect it, it really hits me. I tear up, because it's a quality I don't show in myself. I don't give myself. And guess what happens if you don't give that quality to yourself? You look for it outside. You look for people to make you feel good about yourself because you're beating yourself down constantly. So one thing that I want us to take away from today is, why do we have different parameters for ourselves and other people? Do we not deserve our own love? Do we not deserve our own kindness, our own nourishment? You know, a kid or even a plant doesn't really grow if you keep saying, oh my God, you're such a bad plant, or, you know, look at you, or this is all the things you can do better, and look at other people that are doing. Any seed grows, flourishes, thrives with positivity, with encouragement, with being a cheerleader. Even the plants, and I have a lot of them in the house, you know, if you can be kind to them, you talk positively to them, you might call me crazy, they actually do really well. So if it can happen with plants and with kids, why do we think we're any different? So I do have an exercise for all of us. For those of us who are really hard on ourselves, stop over-indexing on the things that we're doing wrong and realize it's just spotlighting the 2 minutes in a 60-minute meeting that you were not in your mind, your best self. And who has that bar? You. So just look at life in much more for totality, the whole 60 minutes, and don't over-index and magnify that. And the next time the critic comes up, you can name your critic if you want to name your critic something, and just tell them to chill out a little bit. And instead see if you can start nurturing that aspect of yourself which gives you much more of the emotional fulfillment, which is kinder to yourself. And I promise you, we will all thrive a lot more. We will walk in life differently with a bounce on our step when we do that, rather than tiptoe in life because we're scared of our own judgment. So I'm just going to pause there and see if there are any questions that you have. Calvin saying, feel better. Thank you, Calvin. You know, it's funny, I have a little bit of a head cold, and my friend was actually laughing. She's like, oh my God, it's the middle of summer. How can you have cold in summer? I guess crazy things happen. Hey, Supriya, it's so good to see you. Supriya is a very, very dear friend of mine from, nearly 25 years back. We went to grad school together, so it's really good to see you, Supriya. And I think she's joining us from Delhi, if she's still there. Deborah, good to see you. Any questions, any thoughts, any things that you want to share? Because I think this is a topic that we all need to remind ourselves again and again and learn from each other. Modi saying, so relatable, great reminder, awesome. So if you don't have anything, then I do have an exercise for you. Don't over-index on the negative. Give yourself a pat on the back. And just know that life moves in perfection and you are perfect, despite what you think. Because whoever made us, which is not us, they made us perfectly for the roles we're supposed to play. So just keep that perspective, the wider perspective. And the next time you're about to beat yourself down, intervene. Right? Like you would intervene if somebody was saying something to a best friend and they were being a little unkind and harsh, you would intervene. So intervene for yourself, stand up for yourself, and just be kind to yourself. So Priya's asking, what does one do when the critic strikes you big time? It's a really good question. One, two things, and I actually learned that more from my husband. Laugh at the critic. Don't take your critic so seriously. And second is disregard. See if there's a lesson in there and disregard. And of course, meditation really helps to kind of have distance from it. But in that moment, it can be a little bit tough. So the more we stop taking our critics seriously, the less power it has on us. It's a great question. How about over-positive when we're too confident about ourselves? Yes, it's a really good one. It is a fine line. There are people who have such a larger-than-life perspective about themselves and beat other people down. Not to do that either, right? It doesn't really matter whether you beat yourself up or someone else. It's about being in the middle and not beating anyone up. It's a great, great question. We can go in the opposite direction. Good. So if not, then have a great week. Be kind to yourself and be your biggest cheerleader rather than your biggest critic. Okay? I'll see you again next Friday. Bye.